Nketiah, hey, your defense is in trouble. Nketiah, you know. The defense is in trouble. Nketiah in the
Hello and welcome to the Gooner Tool, back again with you guys for another episode of Nketiah, your defense is in trouble. Lovely stuff. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Thank you for everybody that continue to support and show so much love to the channel. It means everything. You joined me this morning after, of course, not only this being an hour later, for those that are wondering why around the world this show is not the usual time. That's because over here in the UK, we've had daylight savings. And of course, that means that everything has gone back an hour. So yes, apologies for that. So you're going to have to get used to the new time that the show is going to be dropping at. Here in the UK, it's still 8 a.m., although it feels like 9 a.m. So I'm feeling particularly rested and alive and well, and certainly very up for talking about Arsenal and Eddie Nketiah as well. So yes, good morning to those joining us in the chat box. Very much appreciate everyone doing so. Let's say good morning to people that have joined us. Massive Bulele, James, Granddaddy Gooner, E Ash, Viraj. We've got Rich Kanu, John. We've got Black Shine, Matt Tomo. We've got John Rocks, Josh, Runs with Cows, Temi, Maya, Stephen, Emmanuel, Aidan. We've got Rob, John, Mohammed, Nick, Barry, Sweating, Merlo, Stephen, John. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It means so much. And I hope you enjoyed yesterday morning show as well. We did it in a very, very different way. I was, of course, staying at Mike's flat in Highbury last night after. And I did that. That's probably the show I've done with the least amount of sleep. I had about 3.5 hours sleep before doing that show, and yet we still did it. So I hope that you appreciated it. I hope you enjoyed it. Had a good chat. First time I think we've ever done an 8 a.m. show where there's been more than one person in the room. Not to use that term too often this show, but yeah, it was really enjoyable, and had certainly a very, very good weekend, or Friday into Saturday. And today is going to be more chill. Today, hopefully we can watch some other teams drop points. Hopefully we can. Hopefully I can put away another 90 score in golf. So I'm off to play some golf for the first time in a long time in some very wet weather. It's not meant to be too nice today, to be fair, but hopefully maybe we'll get lucky. We'll have to wait and see. But we're here, of course, to talk about yesterday's results. Please make sure you drop a like on the video. Please make sure you subscribe as well, because I'd very much appreciate everybody just continuing to enlarge this TGT family as well. So your defense is in trouble because Nketiah is in the room. Arsenal 5, Sheffield United 0 at the Emirates Stadium yesterday. Fantastic result for Arsenal. A result that creates some interesting talking points for a number of reasons, not only because of Eddie, but of course also because specifically the goal tally, the goal difference, the amount of goals scored now this season, it's drastically changed, and changes a lot of the talk about, Arsenal, and if they're as free flowing as they usually are. Now, I want to caveat this, and you're not going to like this. I don't think you're going to like this at all, but I want to caveat this show with the fact that Sheffield United are probably the worst team I have ever seen in my entire life of watching football. I have never seen a worse performance than that. And we were going up to somebody yesterday after the game, and we were like, obviously fist pumping and, very happy about the result. But then we both at the same time just looked at each other and went, they were blooming awful, weren't they? They were so bad. They were absolutely dreadful. And I don't want that to undermine, the performance and the talking points, but I think it is important to I do think it's important to bring up that fact, because obviously there are you don't want to get too carried away, you don't want to go too OTT about certain things, and we'll be kind of analyzing individual performances and what people did in light of what was a very, very poor team. And it is worth saying that Sheffield United, Man United struggled to beat them only like a week ago. Tottenham Hotspur very, very, very nearly didn't get a result against them. Oh, here we go. I think I unmuted myself as I sneezed then, so apologies if you heard that. But it's one of those where I'm like clicking the mute button and then managed to sneeze down the microphone. Fantastic. Yeah, certainly a brilliant result. And even though it was a team that have really kind of tested some other sides, certainly Arsenal will be very happy that they came away with a very, very good result indeed. So let's go to Eddie and Nketiah, because there is only one place to start, isn't there? Now, me and you and a lot of other people, and if I scroll down my comment section of our preview show, and of course, if I scroll down the comment sections of the last few days, me and you guys, we wanted Kai Havertz. We wanted Leandro Trossard. We didn't necessarily want to see Eddie and Nketiah start. Let's be honest with ourselves. A lot of us did not want to see Eddie start in this game, and continually he has to battle against adversity and the opinion that Arsenal should be looking to replace him and Arsenal should be looking to upgrade him, and that's the conversation. That is what Eddie faces all the time, constantly. Every single time we have a discussion about the centre forward role, he is never, ever, ever talked about specifically in this sense. He's never talked about being a potential option. He's never talked about being the long-term future of this club. He's never talked about owning that number 14 shirt for what it is, which is obviously a very historical thing in this club. And a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone, and I'm sure there'll be some people in the chat that did want to see Eddie start this game, but I'd say that the majority wanted to see somebody like Trossard and wanted to see somebody like Havertz. And I'm in that majority as well. And we have to hold our hands up. And we have to say, when a chance comes along, when an opportunity is there, you take it. And you know what? I get really frustrated with it's comments like this from Damien, who says scoring a hat-trick against the worst team in Premier League history is hardly an achievement. Can we just have a moment's silence, please, for a terrible opinion? I hate this. I absolutely really, and I'm hoping that you're joking, Damien. I really do. I hate this type of view. I hate it so much. It's the same as like when you talk about players playing in like certain leagues. It's like when Arsenal looking at somebody in the Eredivisie or in the Portuguese league or the Austrian league or something like that, and then people are calling them farmers leagues and things like this, and you're like, no, we don't want to sign those players because they're not being tested, they're not being used against those players. Look at the individuality of those goals. Look at what he does for those goals. The first one, the ball from Declan Rice is great, the touch is fantastic, and he has to finish. It doesn't matter how bad Sheffield United are. He has to take that touch perfectly. He has to turn away from, I think it's Austin Trusty, and he has to finish. And he did that brilliantly. It's nothing to do with the opposition in that moment. He's got to do what he's got to do in that position. The second goal, ball falls to him in the box. So easy to sky a shot from that position. And he's got to put it into one specific area of that net, and he does it. The third goal, I don't care who you are as a team that you're up against. I don't care who you're playing against. That goal's going in against Real Madrid. That goal's going in against the best teams in the world. That goal is brilliant. It's nothing to do with who we were playing against. Every single goal could have happened in any single game whatsoever. And whilst I might joke with some friends about it, at the time, because I myself have been very critical of Eddie Nketiah, and, throughout the entire time he's been at Arsenal, and I have been because it's difficult to foresee a future where Eddie is the number one. And I don't know why that is. I think obviously there are performances like we saw when he came on against Chelsea. I was really disappointed with his performance when he came on against Chelsea last weekend. I was really disappointed with that display. No, sorry, not Chelsea, Sevilla. When he came on against Sevilla in midweek, I was really disappointed with his performance in that game. I felt like it was an opportunity when Gabriel Jesus went off injured to really kind of grab that game and take it forwards. And he didn't. And I was gutted about that. But you can't say that he wasn't a really, really good performer in this game, regardless of who he played against, And that's key. So I sincerely hope that people can start giving him the credit that he deserves, because it doesn't matter who the opponent was in this game. every individual goal he scored would be relevant against every single opponent that he could come up against. You know, it wasn't like bad defending in those situations. He was opportunistic, he was great with his touches, and he was great with his finishes. And you got to say, you know, fair play to Nketiah. I spoke to him after the game. You're going to get some quotes coming from him a little bit later on today. And he was, over the moon, delighted, but still very composed and still very humble about that, about what he'd achieved. Now, obviously, Arsenal scored a fourth in Fabio Vieira. I don't know why this took so long to get a decision. I don't know why it took so long for a decision to be made about the penalty. It was a blatant penalty. I know that there was discussion about whether it was in or outside of the box, but it was so obvious that it was inside the box. Every camera angle showed that it was inside the box. So I don't really get like why there was such a discussion between the referees, VAR. And I don't know if you've watched the Newcastle game, but maybe you can see why they take so long to make decisions, because they still make glaring errors. He Chan Huang does not foul in that moment. I think it's He Chan Huang. There was no foul at all in the game between Wolves and Newcastle. And it was a blatant dive. So it was really odd that it took so long for that to be made. If it was because they were looking for an offside, again, it still took way too long for that to be made. And you have to find a balance, you have to find a balance. His first Premier League goal of the season. I'm talking about this season, guys, in the chat. First Premier League goal this season. And, when it comes to a player like him coming off the bench and taking that chance, and apparently, maybe there's congratulations to be had, because it looks like potentially his family's got a baby on the way, which is good for him. So let's wait and see, shall we, what happens with Fabio Vieira in the future, because I think there is still talent very much there. He's a really good penalty taker. I think he's got depth for us. He's got options. He's got quality to give Arsenal, and we look forward to that. Tomiyasu, though, scoring his first Arsenal goal. What a lovely opportunity. Well, I love Tomiyasu. I think he's a brilliant footballer. I think he offers us so much as a player. And I do really think that he's a player that should be kept for the long term, that there aren't really too many question marks about. And I think when you can play as well as you can in so many different positions, and that right back position is not my favourite role from his. In fact, it's my least favourite role that he plays in. But overall, very pleased with his performance. Overall, again, coming off the bench for Ben White, who I thought was good. We'll talk about him in a second. But Tomiyasu, so pleased for him to get his first goal. And I hope that we sign him up to a brand new contract. There's rumours going around that Arsenal want to extend his time with the club. And I think that's absolutely the right decision. So fingers crossed, Tomiyasu can indeed sign that new deal and continue to play really, really well for us. Ben White was so close. So close. We nearly got it, people. Thank you to everybody that tweeted me in that moment in which he absolutely cannoned an effort into the hands of Foderingham. I thought we were going to get it. I really did think we were going to get the Ben White screamer. And we came very, 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 very close to getting it. And it shows you he's capable of it. It shows you he's capable of absolutely spanking a strike into the corners of the goal. It was a good save. I think the keeper was able to see it all the way. Maybe if he was a bit unsighted, it would have been more difficult and it would have flown in. But we were so close, weren't we? We were really, really close. And thank you to everyone that did drop me some lines throughout the course of the day on TGT and on my personal account as well. I'm glad that everyone was in that moment thinking, oh, the TGT family would have been so happy if Ben White. So still, we are going to be predicting Ben White to score a screamer. We don't have to do any Tomiyasu predictions anymore because he's now broken his duck for Arsenal. But yeah, Ben White screamer still very much in the offing as well. Right, let's talk about something off field because it's important that we clean this one up. Martin Odegaard was I say dropped. I don't like using that word because that's not even the right terminology to use in this case. Martin Odegaard was rested for this game. Mikel Arteta confirmed after the game that he'd been dealing with an issue, and over the last few weeks has been playing with a problem. And so I think that this is the really, really good explanation. There's been a lot of questions about Martin Odegaard's form, about how he has been in those games. And Dow says we all owe our skipper an apology. And it's important then when we get, this kind of information and this kind of clarity. And I think it's important that it's then applied and then we go and reevaluate what we've said about certain players when it is provided. Now, I can tell you that it's a hip injury that Odegaard is currently dealing with. And so, frustratingly, that has been plaguing him for the last few weeks. And so a rest has been the greatest opportunity he can get. Hopefully, this game providing with that. Hopefully, in midweek, Odegaard will probably be rested again, and then we can see him back for the Newcastle game fully fit and hopefully over this problem. I don't know how serious that it is. I don't know how serious the problem is. So I can tell you that it's a hip problem and that he's been suffering with some pain. And hopefully, he gets over it. So there you go. But lovely stuff to see that opportunity to rest not just him, but we rested Gabriel and we brought players off early. Martinelli and Saka also brought off quickly. I'm intrigued to see how strong we go on Wednesday against West Ham. I'm intrigued to see how easy it is to change things, because there's also something to be said about giving players some minutes. Like, even though Odegaard has had this injury, I think that the Newcastle game, I'd like to see Odegaard start. And I would say that Smith Rowe and Havertz didn't really take their opportunities yesterday. They're the attacking midfielders in that team. The emphasis is on them to make stuff happen. But we didn't see that much from Havertz. We didn't see too much, so a little bit more from Smith Rowe than Havertz. But both of them seemed more like enablers in the performance. They both seemed more like players that were there to kind of keep things ticking over, and all the threat came from the wide areas and of course from the central striker as well. And I wanted to see more from Smith Rowe and Havertz, and sadly we didn't. And I think maybe it highlighted what you lose when Odegaard wasn't there. I especially thought at half time that we were really missing him and missing his influence on the game. But yeah, I'm hoping, and that's, to be honest, it's probably because of a lack of minutes. Havertz and in particular Smith Rowe haven't had too many opportunities. That was Smith Rowe's first start in a Premier League game since May 2022. Quite incredibly, that Newcastle game that sadly lost us the Champions League qualification that season in 21-22. That was the first Premier League start for Smith Rowe since that game. And that's probably part of it. But there's also something to be said about players, when they get into a game, that you have to take those chances. And people saying he got an assist, I see you in the chat, but let's be honest. Come on, let's be honest. It's one of those assists where you give it to a player and they then smash a shot in that's got like a 0.01 XG. And you're like, yay, what a great assist. It's like those times where you see like a pass play to a player in his own half and then they run the length of the field and score. That goal that Son scored for Spurs, where I can't remember who it was that laid it off to him in like his own defensive third. And then Son ran the length of the pitch and scored. And they're like, yeah, but you got an assist in that game. It's hardly an assist, is it? He's just passed it to him. Nketiah spun and absolutely smashed one in from 25 odd yards. So it's and this is where I think, numbers, it's a great example of where numbers, people have been saying about Odegaard, like he's only got X amount of assists and X amount of goals this season. I'm like, you're not watching it properly. You're not watching Odegaard properly, because if you're just looking off the back of numbers, you're never going to appreciate what he does in games. And I think that you appreciate him, especially when he's not there. And I think we definitely missed Odegaard, even in a 5-0 win. I still think we missed him, especially in the first half, to keep things, a lot more. I think the right wing suffered a bit. I think the left wing was a lot more. We used the left wing a hell of a lot more because of that. And I hope that Odegaard comes back towards, just as soon as feasibly possible. Let's talk about the table. We have closed the gap, of course, with the top again. And not only that, but I think the 5-0 win is really important to, for our goal difference. And what's really, really interesting is that obviously before this game was played, before we played this fixture, Arsenal were 5 goals off of their tally at the same point in the previous season. So what that means is basically by the 9th game, Arsenal had scored 18 goals. And by the 9th game of last season, what we saw was Arsenal have scored 23 goals. Now, Arsenal have now scored 23 goals. And to be fair, I think by the same point this season, we'd scored 24. So we're only 1 goal off of the amount of goals that we scored at the same point last season after 10 games in the Premier League. So all this talk of, Arsenal aren't scoring enough. We don't look as good. We're not as free-flowing as we were last season. I hear you. And Arsenal were scoring, arguably more goals in certain games. We had that 4-2 win against the 4-2 win against Leicester. We scored 3 against Spurs. We scored 3 against Liverpool. We scored 3 against Brentford. We obviously opened the scoring against Crystal Palace with a 2-0 win, and we beat Bournemouth 3-0. But, this season, we've had 2 4-0 wins and a 5-0 win against Bournemouth, PSV, and Sheffield United. And again, people would turn around and say, yeah, but look who we were scoring them against. For me, it's never about the comparisons of how many goals we score or what the metrics are necessarily in some cases. I just think that it's about Arsenal evolving. It's about how you develop as a team, how you evolve as a team, what you do differently so that you've got a better chance of winning. I know there's probably people out there that will point out that we're 3 points worse off than what we were last season. And the honest answer for that is sure, we're 3 points worse off than we were last season. But do you know what we did this season that we haven't done last season? We beat Manchester City. We took points off them. They've now got to respond to us and go level with us at this point. And I think the league is tougher this season than it was last season. Obviously, Spurs are better. Liverpool are better. Villa are better. I think it's tougher. You still got teams like Chelsea struggling. And there's one thing missing from this picture, by the way, which, of course, is Chelsea. Oh, how glorious. How brilliant. Like, that set up the day perfectly. We're all in the press lounge. I had my little chocolate cake to the side. It was very nice. And I was just watching as Neil Maupay. I've always loved Neil Maupay. I thought he's a glorious human being. I think he's a wonderful person. I'm sure he does loads of humanitarian work, I'm sure. I just watched as my favourite player in the entire world ran away from Robert Sanchez. And because Neil Maupay is so good at football that he can't score an open goal from 16 yards, he decided to lay the ball off to Bryan Mbeumo, who somebody took out of their fantasy team this week. I don't know who. Somebody took Bryan Mbeumo out of their fantasy team this week. And Mbeumo just breaks Chelsea hearts. And apparently Chelsea are back. Apparently their draw against us meant they're back. Apparently it meant that they're now, they're a better team than us. It showed that they're a better team than us. Their best performance of the season couldn't even get them 3 points when it was our worst performance of the season. And, the only thing that Chelsea are back is they're back in 11th place. That's the only thing that they've got back. And Brentford are looking better. And obviously we play Brentford in the league in a few weeks. Ramsdale will be playing in that game, of course, which I suppose is another thing we've not really talked about today. David Raya didn't have to do anything. But what David Raya did do that isn't being talked about much is David Raya's pass to Gabriel Martinelli in the first half is one of the best goalkeeping passes from his hands that I've ever seen. And we were very unlucky not to score in that moment. And that really might have changed the talk about his distribution, about his contributions. Yes, he's had errors. Yes, he's made mistakes. But that pass by David Raya to Martinelli on the left wing was one of the best goalkeeping passes I have ever seen in the flesh. And he deserves credit for that. And he was just calm, he controlled, he collected crosses. There wasn't any errors in the game. He wasn't tested, of course. I don't think they even face a shot. Did Sheffield United have a shot yesterday? I don't know if they did. Let me have a quick look. They had 2 shots. None of them were on target. Did they count the one that was like an attempt from the halfway line that went out for like a throw-in? But yeah, they were dreadful. But you got to give Raya credit when he deserves it. So when he's talking about, and one of the big things that Paul says here, Tom Raya had no shots on target to face. But one of the big things we've talked about Raya is his distribution. We've criticised Raya for his distribution. And so when he does well with his distribution, we should praise that. So that's important to do. But yeah, I was very happy with that. And I'm very happy just with the league table, besides what currently sits on top of it, obviously. Again, an incredibly lucky team. Spurs are just lucky to be where they are. I'm sick of the Ange Ball praise. I'm sick of him. I can't believe I ever said I like the guy. I hate him now. But you could have one shot on target and score 2 goals. That's what Spurs are. They're a team that are incredibly lucky. And I can't wait till that elephant that is sitting on top of that tree comes crashing down, hopefully very, very soon. They've got a very difficult run of games coming up now. Hopefully we take advantage of that. Hopefully they falter. Of course, we've got a trip to Newcastle coming up. And Newcastle, no, Bruno Guimaraes will indeed be available because he didn't get another yellow card, which is annoying, but it is what he is. And we'll face a team that may not have Alexander Isak. Callum Wilson's got 2 goals. I did put him in my fantasy team. Yeah, I do think that that's going to be a tough game. But if Arsenal come through that Newcastle game, suddenly the league and the fixtures up until at least Christmas really opens up for Arsenal. So that's really good news. Really good news. I've got more good news for you as well, because I can give you something that maybe at Christmas is better than any gift any human being. Maybe that's too far. I can give you a gift that plenty of people, thousands, millions even, would appreciate. And that, of course, is NordVPN. When they're in the room, NordVPN, when they are in the room with you, more than just defenses are in trouble. The annoying barriers that are put in place to stop you from watching what you want to watch when you're in a different country because they're location locked, they are in trouble. They're the ones that are in trouble because NordVPN, when it's in the room, is going to give you that ability to be able to get past those barriers, to score from 35 yards. And if you want to get involved in this and you want to make sure that you've got this superpower, then you just need to go to nordvpn.com/Gooner to get yourself a significant discount off a 2-year plan, and you get some extra months thrown in as well with that link. So that's nordvpn.com/Gooner. It's not just that, but you get plenty of protection. Keep yourself a clean sheet, like David Raya did yesterday. Stop trackers from looking at what you're doing. Stop Todd Poley from peeping on the transfer targets that you want to look at, allegedly. So just do it. Get involved. nordvpn.com/Gooner. Links in the description. I encourage you to do so. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Right, we're going to jump into the chat and we're going to tackle some of your questions. Hopefully what we see is some really inspiring questions going to make me think rather than where is Nketiah? Because we all know the answer. He's in the room. It's not going to get old. It's just not going to get old, is it? Right, let's go to Anne. Says, why isn't Saka talked about as a future captain for Arsenal? He's Mr. Arsenal, an inspiration for youth players, and he is always a 7 out of 10 and above. I'm underselling his value. That last line about him being always a 7 out of 10 or above, I'm not sure I can double down on that one. But what I would say is that he's certainly Mr. Arsenal of this team. He absolutely embodies this club. He loves this club. He enjoys being here. He was very honoured to get the captain's armband. I can tell you yesterday, he was very, very pleased about that. And I think that hopefully one day that he does become, maybe, because Odegaard, I want to see stay at the club for a very, very long time. And so because of that, I don't know if we'll ever see Saka become captain until maybe way further down the line, unless Odegaard, of course, leaves, which I hope that he doesn't. But yeah, it's nice that he's part of that group. It's nice that he's wearing that armband. I think it's a really, really positive thing. Marcus says, RIP Matt Perry. And yeah, agreed. Really sad news to wake up to this morning. I grew up watching Friends. I watched Friends religiously. I can answer pretty much any question about that. So yeah, really sad news indeed. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, goodness me. I feel like I've got allergies this morning. I'm about to go out and walk in a grassy field for 4 hours, hitting a ball around. So my allergies are going to take a right battering today, clearly. Big Sosa says, hey, Tom, am I crazy? But I think Kivior might be better suited than Gabriel. I think he's a better passer and a safer stay-at-home type defender. I think Gabriel makes some questionable decisions. No, the answer is no, Big Sosa. Gabriel is by far a better player than Kivior. Kivior is a really good talent, and I'm excited to see what Kivior brings to the table. But it's easy to talk about this when Kivior's at a good display in a game where, I think with Nketiah, you can appreciate the goals that he scored, even though the opposition were what they were. But when you're a centre back against a team that offered nothing going forwards, and I mean nothing, it's very difficult to have any defining conclusions about him. Very difficult to make those key decisions there. So when it comes to somebody like that, I think that there are other games in which we'll see Kivior and what he's able of producing. Hopefully we see him play in midweek against West Ham as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And I thought that when he was tested and there was kind of moments where the ball fell to him, he dealt with it really, really well. There were some really good moments from him. So that's really, really positive too. I actually don't know how long I'm going to be able to do this show because I feel like my allergies are really getting the better of me today. Phil Ed says, Tom, I don't know if you see it like me, but I've noticed our tempo has been slower than last season. Maybe this could be due to not being caught out in transition, something that we were a bit poor in before. Now, Clive made an observation on Twitter yesterday, which I certainly noticed as well. Let me find you Clive's tweet because it was very good. It was a very noticeable thing during the game. It was yesterday. So every time we force the ball forwards, Arteta is not happy. He wants 1 million passes and patience. Fans want forward passes. This gap is one to be aware of when we watch games. So what he means by that, what Clive is talking about, is the fact that as fans, we were getting quite frustrated in the first half. And there was a lot of chance for kind of really trying to push Arsenal forwards to get them forced up the field. And when Arsenal went a bit long and played those passes in behind, Arteta weren't too happy on the sidelines. He wanted patience. He wanted us to be in control. He wanted us to pass them to death, which I know people are annoyed about. But if we're being very honest, the best teams in the world and the teams that win those leagues are very controlled in what they do. And the build-up is slower and the build-up is more thought through and meticulous and accurate and premeditated. And because of that, I think it's also important to say that you look at the goals that we scored, and I think that build-up, Rice ball into Nketiah, the second goal is obviously a build-up that gradually leads to a corner that we score from. Nketiah's third goal, yes, is a long-range strike, but the build-up towards getting him into that position, again, was well thought through and slow and gradually reached that point. The penalty comes from Arsenal, again, suffocating the team in their own final third, and eventually a darting run by Fabio Vieira is punished, and a penalty is awarded. And then obviously we build up play and we continue to suffocate the team and get another corner, which we score from again. So yes, we're slower in how we build up. And yes, we're slower in what we're doing, but there's a reason for that. And it's definitely a positive thing. It's definitely a positive thing that leads us to having greater control and greater thought through processes about our build-up play. Aaron says, I saw Clive and Elliott walking up to the Emirates slope yesterday, but it looked in good conversation, so I left them to it. I love those guys. Yes, I managed to see both of them yesterday. Obviously, I was with Elliott for many, many hours on Friday evening. Some would say too many hours. And as I left from the pub that we were at after the game, I popped in and said hello before I headed home. As I was leaving and my Uber arrived, Elliot quite literally chased after me to say goodbye. So he's a brilliant guy, love him to bits, and had a great time. And the man's got a hell of a singing voice, I can tell you that, and he loves people hearing it as well. So yeah, it was a great evening and really very much enjoyed that. Benji says, why do you think lately our left centre mid doesn't get touches on the ball? I've noticed this a lot lately with Odegaard and Smith Rowe getting way fewer touches than the rest of the team. Do you mean right centre mid then? Because obviously Odegaard's would be right central midfield. Emil Smith Rowe less so. Much more on the left-hand side yesterday, of course. I'm not really sure. I mean, Rice, when he's played left centre mid, has done really, really well and been very much involved in the games, like he was for Sevilla, like he was against Man City, like he was against Chelsea. So I'm not sure necessarily, Benji, if that's accurate. But I thought both attacking midfielders yesterday weren't the best, didn't have the greatest, almost influential of games. So maybe that's a point to consider. Maximia says Tom Rice at 6 or 8 or in between. I think he's great at both, mate. To be honest, I don't think we even need to. I don't think we need to differentiate now. I think we should just appreciate that he's great in both roles and appreciate that so yeah, I don't think we need to choose that. John says perfect game for Zinchenko, but I played Tommy for Newcastle. What are your thoughts? Oh yeah, without a doubt, Tomiyasu should start against Newcastle. I'd probably start Zinchenko on Wednesday night against West Ham. Maybe Kivior goes at left back, I don't know, but I think Tomiyasu has to play against Newcastle. It's the obvious choice for me. So yeah, without a doubt, Tomiyasu should play at Newcastle. Sean says, been here for over 2 years now already. Wow, thank you, Sean. Or Sean, I hope I'm pronouncing that. Or Sean, you'll have to let me know. Thank you so much for your continued support. That is very, very kind of you indeed. Morgie says, Tom, I shouldn't judge players by transfers paid rather than their worth on the pitch, but I can't stop comparing the performance of Trossard and Kai and the relative money that we've paid. It just doesn't seem comparable. And you're right. The contribution of Trossard has been far and away greater than we've had from Havertz so far, and I think that it's just a case. It's just a case ultimately of waiting and being patient with Havertz and hoping that he can ultimately, improve and have greater impact. I do think that maybe his role in I think his role in the team under Arteta is not going to be the same as it was by Leverkusen. I think that his role under Arteta is not going to give you those consistent, frequent, dynamic moments that grasp our attention, and that what Arteta wants from him maybe isn't going to be as well stated. But we're in a title race again. He's played big parts of this season. He's been big parts of some big performances, and maybe we're not giving him enough credit. But then I see a comment here. Let me find it. Where's the comment? It was a really good point. Front yard, was it? Yes. Tom, I'll be honest. I want to applaud every Arsenal player, but I can't stand everyone applauding Smith Rowe when he was poor and then shaming Havertz when he was average. And I think this is fine as a point to point out. I think it has merit. It is frustrating that everyone batters Havertz for having a poor display. And when Smith Rowe was no better than him, really, that he gets a big, lots of praise. And I think it's just part of, he's obviously a Hale Ender and there's a big attachment with Smith Rowe. And that obviously makes things a bit different to a player that we've signed from a rival that's cost us a lot of money, and people maybe would have rather seen that spent on a James Maddison, So all of those things, I think, probably lead to why we find ourselves where we are with that. Hopefully it changes, but I don't think Havertz is going to change people's minds until he has a game where he really does grab it by the scruff of the neck and changes things for us. But maybe that's just not what Arteta wants from him. I am going to wrap things up there. I am struggling with my allergies today, so apologies for that. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new. I hope you have a fantastic Sunday. I hope that we see more points dropped by our rivals. Keep those fingers crossed that we do. And just remember that when Nketiah is in the room, your defence is very much in a hell of a lot of trouble. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe. Stay well. And as always, up the Arsenal.